Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gland Bodybuilding Mountain. And I thought I'd make a video just explaining why I don't lock out on close grip bench, because I just had somebody talk about how I'm doing everything wrong, like usual, right? Some of you guys just don't trust that I've done experiments on this stuff, and they're saying, hey, you should be locking out on the top with your close grip bench. But you see, there is a point of diminishing return when it comes down to the range of motion with the close grip bench. As I'm coming up, there's a certain amount of stretch in the tricep and a certain amount of tension that's established. But once I lock out, you notice that there is no tension up here except for all on the joints. And this is what I talk about when I say you're jujitsuing yourself. You're putting your joints in a compromised position when you're locking out, but you're also taking the tension off the triceps. So we all know that people are all starting to talk about constant tension under stretch is a lot of times the ideal way to get more results when it comes down to hypertrophy. Well, it's also true with just having more stretch than in the contracted position. You see what I'm saying? So when I'm contracting, but there's no more tension to offset the contraction, what's happening is I'm just flexing isometrically. I'm not necessarily fighting the weight. So once I come to here and then I come back down, I keep the ideal amount of tension on the triceps. But once I go from here to here, I'm basically just offsetting the tension or the good results that could be happening just from the constant tension on the tricep. So that's the thing. So you have to remember that it's not always about from point A to point B. And I think a lot of people get lost in this concept when it comes down to exercises. They say, okay, bring the weight from point A and then bring it to point B. I see the same thing with guys that squat. Like a lot of guys in my gym are squatting and they're going all the way down and all the way up, assuming that they're getting more muscular results that way. But nothing could be further from the truth, because what's happening is they're resting on the bottom and then they're locking out on the top, resting on the knees and then coming down again, but they're not keeping that tension on the legs. The tension is being traded from one part of the leg to another part of the leg, then to the lower back, to the hips, and it's going back and forth like a fire line. When the guys are passing the bucket of water along the line, right? It's the same thing. The tension is not being hyper-focused on the area that a person wants to grow. And this is what I talk about when it comes down to getting the ego out of the way. A lot of times people are training because they have ego, but it's not just about lifting heavier weight. A lot of times it's about lifting the weight a certain way because that's what's socially approved of at the time. And I'm saying throw away all that dogma, figure out what is the best way for you to get results, and what is the best way for you to feel the tension on that area, and that's what you should be doing. It's not about just going from point A to point B, resting in one area, then resting at the top, and then taking little breaks. Now again, you can do that if that's what's working for you. I'm not against it, but if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, I would say stop that. It's that simple. It's the same thing with the deadlift mentality. A lot of people are deadlifting because it's the easiest movement to just strain your ass off and see what you can lift from the floor. It's kind of got this universal sort of applicable sort of idea around it where everybody thinks, hey, it's lifting from the floor, so it's the same for everybody. But it's not, because each person has their joints at different angles to lift from that floor. So ironically, sometimes it's easier for a tall guy than a short guy, depending on the bodily dimensions, right? Some guys have orangutan arms where they don't even have to bend over to lift the weight, and other guys have Tyrannosaurus Rex arms and they have to bend over so much in order to get the weight off the floor. They're working a whole bunch of different muscles or stressing a whole bunch of different areas that maybe this other person is not. So once you start getting caught up in this pissing contest, you start ignoring what your body needs because you're so busy looking at what other people are doing. And this can really work against you. And this is why when I was competing, I saw a lot of guys not achieve their genetic potential because they were too busy doing things the proper way, but not the way that was applicable to keeping the tension on their muscles and keeping the tension off of, let's just say, the areas that are compromised in certain positions, right? So a lot of times they'd be walking around with different injuries or different issues because they weren't paying attention to how these forces were playing out. So yeah, don't let this happen to you, but that's the short explanation of why I don't lock out on close grip bench. And I hope that explains it to you. And in the end, even if you don't understand what I'm saying, just trust that I know my body better than you do. That's really it, you know? Just like you would know your body better than I do. I've never stepped inside your body, you know? So makes kind of sense, right? I mean, it's not that complicated. Mountain. So yeah, I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you check out the Patreon podcast. The link is in the description, and take care for now. Oh yeah, and thanks to these guys. Thanks guys.